Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
With a little help from Mother Nature, firefighters now have the upper hand on the Border 2 fire. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The fire is now 43% contained and 6,600 acres burned. KPBS's Alexander Nguyen says the flames are not expected to spread anymore.
It looks really good. The rain has done really good for us lately.
Things were certainly different today compared to last Friday. The sky is clear and there's no smoke rising from the burned area.
We did pick up a half-inch of rain last night. Over the past 36 hours, we picked up about an inch of rain total over the fire.
Incident meteorologist Mark Loffelbein from the National Weather Service says the rain certainly helped. Though there is a small chance of thunderstorms in the area, he says that shouldn't be a concern. The weather is now getting drier.
Once that drier air moves in, expect those RHs to dip to 60 to 70%.
As you can see behind me, there are storm clouds over the mountains. CAL FIRE says the rain has significantly reduced fire activities.
All right, it's raining. We're not expecting a lot of fire growth or movement.
Fire behavior analyst Jonathan Pangburn says the brush is still critically dry as crews continue mop-up operations. The wetter weather, however, is creating some hazardous conditions for firefighters.
The rain is starting to saturate some soils in certain areas.
The goal now is to mop up and suppress any hot spots.
We need to get our folks home.
Some crews have been fighting fires here in San Diego for the past 2 weeks. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Looking ahead to tonight, we're dropping down to lows right around the mid-40s here along the coast, especially in San Diego proper, though it is still a little chilly. We're going to hang on to that chill for a little while longer, but we'll let you know when that warm-up is on the way again.
A massive federal immigration roundup that snared nearly 1,000 people over the weekend continues today. The Trump administration says it's targeting known criminals, but many families worry their loved ones will be swept up in the net. As Laura Aguirre reports, some citizens in cities across the nation are setting up protective measures.
This is, in some ways, a big show.
That's how Texas Democrat Representative Joaquin Castro sums up the nationwide immigration roundup.
I think that people generally agree if you have a convicted felon, they should be deported.
On that, there is bipartisan agreement.
If they are indeed criminals, yeah, they're going to be shipped back to their country of origin.
Including how that's done.
Look, everybody should be treated with dignity. Everybody should be treated the right way.
But it's the scope and speed that's concerning.
What Donald Trump is doing now is that he's causing chaos rather than addressing those things.
They're going after people who are law-abiding, who are holding down jobs, who may have been here for a decade or 2 decades.
Illinois is one of several states and territories where the operations are underway.
I had a 4-year-old crying, fearing deportation.
The state's Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights says a hotline to report possible ICE sightings has been ringing nonstop since Sunday's blitz began. Likewise for another such hotline in Arizona.
We've been getting a lot of calls, text messages about different possible raids.
Residents here, like those in other targeted cities, are fearful it's not just criminals the agents will handcuff.
It's a wide net seemingly being casted, and inevitably you'll have effects of racial profiling and upsetting a community that would otherwise collaborate with law enforcement.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
Over the weekend in Tijuana, Mexican federal, state, and municipal authorities allowed media access to a new shelter for deportees who are part of the anticipated mass deportations by the Trump administration. KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler takes us inside.
This is Mexico What, the free road from Tijuana to Rosarito. That building was an event hall called Flamencos Eventos until just last week. It hosted things like quinceañeras and wedding receptions. It has been turned into a temporary shelter for deportees. It is part of a national program in Mexico called Mexico te abraza, or Mexico Embraces You.
México te abraza.
On January 21st, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced the program in her daily press conference. It is how Mexico is preparing for the repatriation of its citizens if American President Donald Trump is able to follow through with his promise of mass deportations. This shelter is part of a new network of facilities created in Mexico along the border with the United States. Baja Governor Marina del Pilar Avila says this facility is exclusively for deportees repatriated because of President Trump's promised mass deportations.
Hay atención consultorios médicos y también tendrán atención psicológica, emocional, por cualquier, pues, el nivel de estrés, ¿no? O ansiedad con la cual puedan llegar hasta este centro de atención. Y recordarles, esto es muy importante.
Governor Pilar says this facility will not just feed and house the deportees, but also provide medical and psychological care to help them manage the stress of their deportation. Media was allowed access to one section of the shelter, showing the dining hall, kitchen, bunk beds, medical offices, and government offices. Monica Juliana Vega Aguirre is the Secretary of Environment and Sustainable Development. She represented the governor to English-speaking media. Vega says this shelter is ready.
We know that there is a lot of expectation of when and how many people are coming. So in this first center, we're ready to receive 2,600 people, men, women, families, young people, so they can come back to their country safely. We want to give them a warm welcome.
On this day, no deportees are at the shelter. Nonetheless, the governments of Tijuana, Baja California, and Mexico say they are ready to welcome them home. In Tijuana, Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
The KPBS News team put together a list of common immigration statutes and their definitions in an effort to highlight the many ways immigrants can hold legal status in the U.S. You can find it on our website, kpbs.org. MTS says it's making getting around town easier for those who use the trolley. The company has brought on more conductors and is increasing the frequency of trolleys in high traffic routes. As of yesterday, trolleys are scheduled to arrive every 15 minutes compared to every half hour before.
And I feel like it's nice when I get to the trolley station and it's already there, or like I only have to wait a few minutes, just because like some areas of town are like sketchier than others and stuff like that, especially at night. So it would definitely be more convenient in that sense too.
MTS was able to fund the changes through Senate Bill 125. A spokesperson says ridership has grown steadily and is currently at about 80 or 90% of pre-pandemic levels. San Diego is moving forward with a plan to increase parking meter rates. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it's an effort to ease the impact of upcoming budget cuts.
Most parking meters in San Diego charge $1.25 per hour, well below the rate at private lots and garages and meter rates in other cities. The new rate of $2.50 is expected to bring in about $10 million per year to pay for transportation improvements around parking meters. Councilmember Sean Ela Rivera said those costs would otherwise be borne by the general fund, which is facing a massive deficit.
And by collecting additional revenue, we're alleviating that pressure from the general fund, therefore allowing those dollars to be used for the firefighters, police officers, parks, rec centers, all of the things that our residents want and deserve.
City officials have to cut more than $258 million in spending to balance the city's budget. Council President Joe LaCava said parking meters have long been underpriced.
And I imagine that if we had gone from $1.25 to $1.30 at some point to $1.35, that incremental increase over the years, given the cost of living, would have been a little bit easier to tolerate.
The city is also exploring ways to expand parking meters into more neighborhoods. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump and House Republicans meet to advance his agenda. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
More than 376,000 postcards are heading out to registered voters in San Diego County's first supervisorial district. A special election is being held to fill a vacant seat on the Board of Supervisors. And if no candidate receives a majority vote on April 8th, the top two will then move on to the special general election, which is on July 1st. District 1 covers most of the South County from the ocean to the Otay and San Miguel Mountains and from Barrio Logan to the border. You can find out which district you vote in by going to sdvote.com. Filling a vacant city council seat is usually straightforward and without any controversy, but not so in the city of Poway, where the public, a newly elected councilman, and the city are at loggerheads over how to replace Councilman Brian Pepin, who is quitting to focus on his consulting business. Voice of San Diego reporter Tigis Lane has been covering the story, and she spoke with KPBS Public Matters reporter Amita Sharma about the dust-up.
Why is filling Poway City Councilman Brian Pepin's seat so controversial?
Well, it kind of goes back a ways. Poway has, with this recent appointment of Brian Pepin's seat, this will be the fourth appointment that Poway's council has made in the past 10 years, so since 2015. And residents are kind of, I think they're just a little bit tired of always opting for an appointment rather than a special election. And there's a level of, residents want to be able to choose who their representative is. And there's also a deeper level that I've heard from some residents where they think that there might be a different level in terms of who they choose for the appointments. Some residents think that the council chooses people who will agree with them on certain issues. Like, for example, Poway has had a lot of development recently, housing developments, some that have caused controversy among some residents who think maybe these big developments don't fit into the community character, or they think it's just causing more traffic, more strain on infrastructure, things like that. And with these appointments, there are some residents who believe that city leaders are choosing incoming leaders who will agree with their developer interests or the development interests.
Tell me about Poway City Councilman Tony Blaine's role in this controversy.
Yeah, so Tony Blaine was recently elected for the District 2 seat, and he is a controversial figure because leading up to this decision by the council to either appoint or put on a special election for Brian Pepin's seat, he actually sent emails to another council member, Peter DeHoff, and in the emails he was urging DeHoff to vote for a special election, or Blaine wrote in the emails that he would continue to lead a recall effort of Councilmember DeHoff, and that he wouldn't vote for DeHoff to be deputy mayor. So these emails are public because they're between city council members, and the city of Poway actually put those emails into the agenda for this recent January 21st meeting, and people saw the emails, and it was controversial because it is considered vote trading, kind of like if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. Some people, were saying bribery, extortion. There hasn't been a legal decision of it yet because it's very recent, but legal experts have said that it could violate state law. So that's kind of how the Blaine controversy started.
I have covered threats to local elected officials quite a bit. At the same time, I know that strong arm tactics and politics go hand in hand. Is what's happening in Poway a bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, this seemed to kind of cross the line in terms of Tony Blaine's emails. He ran a campaign on keeping things honest, being transparent. He's been very critical during his campaign of the current Poway Council, and he's said there's backroom deals, and he was running to kind of stop that sort of behavior. It sort of erodes trust in the public even more. And now people are looking at this like, what else is going on behind closed doors?
Well, that's my next question. I wanted to ask you about what this controversy says about the public's perception of the Poway City Council.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, people are kind of scratching their heads. They're shocked. They're confused. There was already sort of a trust issue, like I said, with all of the appointments in the past. People were already kind of questioning that. And then to see these emails come out. And then also at the January 21st council meeting, the city attorney of Poway, he made some remarks to the public and to Blaine that, calling him a bully and saying he's intimidated him and harassed him. And it was very shocking, and it was another layer to all of this.
Tigges Lane, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. It's that time of year again. Tax filing season is here. The IRS has begun accepting 2024 tax returns today. The deadline to file will be April 15th. The agency's direct file program will also be open in 25 states, including here in California. It allows eligible tax filers to file their taxes directly with the IRS for free. U.S. home sales in 2024 fell to the lowest level since 1995 as high prices and elevated mortgage rates squeezed buyers. Despite the tough conditions, there was some momentum toward the end of 2024. Michael Yoshida has more on what home buyers and sellers can expect this year.
After crawling to a near standstill in 2024, can a new year and a new administration jumpstart the U.S. housing market?
Looking ahead to 2025, our projection is that home sales will start to improve.
Still, two serious headwinds: housing supply and mortgage rates. Buyers and sellers have spent the past few years in the grips of the lock-in effect.
You should sell your home and get a new home. You're trading in a 3-4% mortgage for a 7%, a little bit under 7% mortgage, and that's painful.
Supply beyond existing homes has been tough to find too. As prices continue to rise, experts say meeting market demand with more affordable new construction has its own challenges.
It's the only way for builders to get product sold, and they are, but their costs are increasing, and that's likely to continue through 2025.
So what signs of hope are there? Experts say falling interest rates could lead to lower mortgage rates and help with the lock-in effect. Also, there could be a Trump bump on the housing market, with the new administration potentially taking steps from tax cuts to more pro-business policies and even deregulation.
We know already that roughly $90,000 of the cost of a new home is compliance with regulations and various fees. So it seems like there's ample opportunity to revisit those regulations and try to cut back to find more effective solutions to help address this housing shortage that we've seen.
In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
One person dies every 33 seconds from cardiovascular disease in the United States, but new research performed in space is aimed at repairing damaged hearts in the future. Mandy Gaither has more on the study on the International Space Station.
What do heart muscle cells, NASA's SpaceX Crew 8 mission, and the International Space Station have in common? They're all part of the new out-of-this-world research that launched in March. Like, literally.
The astronauts were amazing. They conducted many experiments, procedures on the ISS.
Chun-Wei Shi and her team at Emory University School of Medicine sent these heart muscle cells to space to see if microgravity would help them better survive. Right now, she says a damaged heart muscle can't regrow itself, but there's hope that transplanting new cells can one day help repair that damage. However, many new cells die after being transplanted into a patient.
So if you can find ways to improve cell survival, then those methods will be helpful for the cell transplantation applications.
After about a week in space, she got the cells back and says the ones that survived went through molecular changes which allowed them to live. She says those changes were likely due to the stress of space travel, and if that could be replicated, it could help future cells withstand heart repairs.
If we can turn off those molecules on Earth, we might be able to help the cells survive and overcome other stressful situations.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And before sending the heart muscle cells to space, Emory University says the researchers first tried to replicate microgravity on Earth by using machines which constantly move the cells around. And based on those results, they wondered if the space environment would allow the cells to live longer.
We'll start you off with your weather headlines. We are keeping those cooler temperatures at least for a little while longer, though we are going to see that rainfall and that snowfall taper off, and we are going to be much drier here even as we head throughout Tuesday into Wednesday, though we're not going to rule out maybe a stray shower. We do have that late week warming trend here on the way. Let's go ahead to tonight, seeing what's on tap here across the area. Oceanside, you're down to 36, Ramona 35, Borrego Springs, you're bottoming out at 35. Then by tomorrow, still on the cooler side, we're hanging on to those low 60s, though the sunshine will be out, though you'll see some clouds a little bit further off towards your east, and even a few showers like I mentioned earlier. Mount Laguna, you're at 34, but the shower chances do remain. This goes through Tuesday night as winter has made its big return, and we're hanging on to these wintry conditions here at least for a little while longer. It is going to provide much needed rain. We know with the wildfires, any bit of moisture is helping, and we have seen significant containment numbers and significant increases with the containment numbers here for those wildfires. Slippery travel across the mountains, of course, as we are anticipating rain and snow. It is going to be much cooler, like we mentioned. So if you don't like it cool, it is good news when you look at it, because we don't have those milder temperatures that were helping to fuel the wildfires, that dried out vegetation. So we'll enjoy the cooler sweep for a little bit as we still are tracking that onshore flow. We could see a few more showers and, yes, even a flurry or two mixed in there across the mountainous terrain, but it's really going to stick off towards the east, anywhere from the coast in through the valleys. Here, over your next 5 days, we'll see those temperatures stay steady here along the coast. We are hovering right around that 60-degree mark. Further inland, well, you're the same. So we are going to be staying a little bit cooler, but you do start to see that rise, that bump in the mercury by the end of the week, or by the start of the weekend. 68 here on tap. We keep the showers here Tuesday, Wednesday across the mountains, so we do start to dry out for the later half of the week, and you do start to warm up a little bit there. Back to the 40s. Hey, you're back to the 70s by the start of the weekend in the deserts. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
So what do your genes have to do with growing old? Well, quite a lot, it seems. But is it due to the actual DNA or the way that those genes are expressed? KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has more on new research that raises a question that's key to treating age-related conditions.
Everybody has a genome and an epigenome. The first refers to the DNA that makes you who you are. The second, epigenetics, is the expression of those genes, which of them get turned on and off. Professor Trey Eidecker says you can think of genes and their expression as being hardware and software.
Some people in the field have likened damage to DNA as damage to hardware in a computer, the primary circuit board.
In this analogy, the computer software is the gene expression, which tell DNA whether to form a heart cell or a lung cell, or, over time, to show signs of aging if that software doesn't get an update. Changing patterns of gene expression, what scientists call the epigenetic clock, are strong indicators of one's biological health. And a hot topic in science today is the question of what causes aging. Is it damage caused by gene mutation or gene expression? And the most promising answer to this debate might be to say that it's caused by gene expression, a somewhat predictable process that can be reversed. But Eidecker, who helped discover the epigenetic clock about 10 years ago, says that might not be the right answer.
I think there's a lot of investment recently in this idea that reversing the epigenetic landscape is going to slow or maybe even reverse human aging.
He says a new study he oversaw doesn't eliminate that possibility, but
it certainly casts a cautionary note that we should also look at the primary causes of some of those changes, which are likely to be in the DNA itself.
The new study was published in the journal Nature, and it shows that gene mutations may be the true cause of aging. Eidecker compares gene mutations to lightning strikes that are powerful and unpredictable. If mutations are the true cause and epigenetic changes simply reflect them, then coming up with treatments for age-related conditions could be much more challenging. What's at stake is not necessarily the length of time people live, but their quality of life.
Many of us think about growing older, and the thing we perhaps fear most isn't dying, but losing the ability to live the lives we want to live.
Zane Koch, the lead author of the Nature study, says the new research has not disproved the predictive value of gene expression.
Now we're kind of looking back at why those epigenetic clocks tick, and it appears that it might be through changes to our DNA in the form of mutations.
Researchers say conclusive proof of their theory will require more research aimed at better understanding gene mutations. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. After the Los Angeles fires, displaced people found themselves in need of basic health care help like medications and glasses. NPR's Morning Edition reports on the help that they are getting. And KPBS Midday Edition is discussing climate policy during President Trump's second term and how it could impact us here in San Diego. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.